Okay, we'll start in a minute or so. Looks like everybody might be here that's going to be here, perhaps. Just a few more seconds. Can everybody see and hear me? Great. I can't see everybody, unfortunately, so if you do have a concern or question, feel free to write it into the chat box, and I'll ask my cohorts, Mark, Adam, and Lila, if they could let me know if they see any questions, just to shout out, and we'll be glad to respond. Okay, I show that it's 10:05. My name is Kathy Bramey Burr, and I am the lead procurement analyst for this project. This is the Alternative Shelter reissue RFPQ-76-2021. This is an optional pre-proposal meeting, so there may be people who are interested in submitting ideas, proposals for this that are not attending. It's not required that you attend this meeting, and this is solely just to answer any questions that might be out there, and also answer any questions about how to submit the proposal. Housekeeping items, if you could turn your cell phones off if you're not using them to call in today, or vibrate, that would be great. Please mute your microphone unless you are speaking. The questions can be put into the chat bar, and we'll try to respond to those as soon as possible. But if you want a definite answer from the county, please also submit those questions to the Q&A tool of the RFPQ at the website, and I can show you where to do that if you have any questions at the end of this meeting. If we have a disruption to this meeting, we'll try to reschedule if we can, and we'll also notify you on the Q&A board if it is rescheduled. Again, questions must be submitted in writing through the Q&A board in order to be binding on the county. As I said earlier, this is an optional pre-proposal meeting, so not everyone who submits a proposal will be here. And today, the agenda is I'll have Mark Jolin from the Office of Joint Office of Homeless Services speak to the scope of work and what we're looking for in the proposals. And when he's done, he'll have a short time for questions. And then I will go over the important dates and the important information on how you can submit your ideas and proposals for this RFP, request for programmatic questions. Any questions before I turn it over to Mark? Again, I may not be able to see your hand, so feel free to unmute yourself. Oh, okay. Mark, if you're ready, I'll be glad to turn it over to you if you'd like to speak about the program and it's what you're looking for.
Thank you, Kathy. Good morning, everybody. I'm Mark Jolin. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm the director of the Joint Office of Homeless Services for the City of Portland, Multnomah County. I recognize many of your faces and names, but some I definitely don't. So I just a brief orientation to the office. So we are an office inside of Multnomah County, and we support both the efforts of Multnomah County and the City of Portland in addressing homelessness and houselessness in our community. We are primarily a funding entity. That means we receive funding from the City of Portland and Multnomah County. We also receive some funding from the federal government and state government, and we put that money out into the community through contracts with a network of nonprofits, over 40 different nonprofits directly and through subcontractual relationships right now. We do a lot of work in the outreach space and sheltering space. I think it's important to recognize that that work spans beyond the unsheltered adult population. We have systems of care for families with children, for domestic violence survivors, and for youth. And the scope of the work also goes well beyond the outreach and sheltering strategies. We invest a lot of resources in helping people exit the streets and exit shelter and get back into housing and get the support services and rent assistance that they need to stay in housing. So with our current operating budget and through the network of nonprofits that we support, we have over 12,000 people a night who are in permanent housing with some level of support from resources that come through our office and from the nonprofits that we support. We do operate over 1,400 beds of year-round shelter in the community. And again, a lot of that is for the adult population, but we have shelter for domestic violence survivors and families with children and youth. We operate several hundred beds of winter shelter right now. It's pretty typical, around 300 additional beds. And then we do support a range of existing alternative shelter programs in the community. Kenton Women's Village, this is soon to open St. John's Village. We provide in-reach supports to places like Dignity Village and Right to Dream. And then, of course, most recently with COVID and the need to create expanded shelter options, we've partnered with the city around the 3 outdoor villages, the C3PO sites. So that's kind of the role that we play is as a funder. We also do a lot of the planning, convene a lot of the planning conversations in our community through a Home for Everyone and otherwise that lead to some of the investment priorities that we have around our response as a community to people experiencing homelessness and houselessness. So this RFPQ is sort of focused on one particular area of need, and hopefully everyone's had a chance to read through the RFPQ. What is driving the urgency of getting this RFPQ out and seeking the proposals from the community is what everyone on this call obviously recognizes, and that is that we have a lot of extremely vulnerable people who are sleeping out unsheltered right now and are lacking access to some of the basic amenities and safety that comes with having even emergency shelter available to them. And we have, as a community, significantly expanded shelter capacity and invested in a wider range of shelter strategies over the last several years. And I think this RFPQ is really focused on continuing that expansion of shelter options, recognizing that while the larger congregate shelters that we have created are full, people are going there, finding the support that they need, and are successfully transitioning out of those shelter spaces. Those spaces don't work for everybody who's outside, and that if we want folks to have that safety off the streets, we need to find creative and different ways to offer shelter services. And that's what you see reflected in the Kenton Women's Village, in the St. John's Village, and what we're hoping to see here. So the other part of this is the anticipated impact of COVID. And that actually takes a number of forms. One, we're extremely concerned, as you can imagine, and as all of you are, that with COVID and the financial impact that it's having on our lowest income households, that when the moratorium lifts, we may see a wave of new folks who become homeless. Obviously, we're going to do everything we can to get rent assistance to folks to help them stay in the housing that they have, but to the extent there isn't enough of that resource, we want to be ready with shelter options for folks who may become homeless. And then we also know that COVID is slowing the rate at which people are able to transition out of homelessness through our shelters and back into housing. It's been one of the impacts of COVID, that both the financial impact on people and the way that it's affected the safety net and housing placement capacity. We've just seen people on the streets longer, having more obstacles to getting into permanent housing right now. So all of that means that we know that we need to both expand the range of sheltering options that we have and overall shelter capacity in the system. And then the third sort of driver here is the feedback we've gotten from all of you and others in the community that we're missing opportunities right now to really take advantage of the resources at the neighborhood level, at the community level, within communities of folks experiencing homelessness, within the faith community, within neighborhoods, to contribute to the solution. That there are a lot of good ideas out there. There are people who want to do the work of setting up and operating shelter and this RFPQ is designed to invite those proposals in and to allow us to explore new partnerships that we haven't had today. So we've some really tremendous nonprofit organizations that support shelter operations in our community right now, and there's a need for more. So this RFPQ is really designed to invite all of you who have ideas, but as importantly, have specific locations in mind where you know that there's an opportunity to create shelter space. You have a group that is prepared to actually run a shelter program for folks to come forward and identify that, and identify for us where the gaps are in the resources that you need in order to make that shelter project happen. So I think the RFPQ is relatively, hopefully, straightforward in terms of what we're looking for in these proposals. I want to be clear, like we understand that not all elements of the program may be developed at the point that you submit your proposal, but we are looking for an understanding of the organization that would be running this, the area of the community that would be served. You'll see in there that one of the important criteria for this is, are we creating capacity in an underserved area of the community? We know that we have shelters in some parts of Multnomah County and far less shelter capacity in other parts of Multnomah County. We very much want to see programs that reach BIPOC communities that are overrepresented in the homeless population. Those of you who are in this work with us know how overrepresented some communities of color are, including in the unsheltered population, and it's a commitment of this office and the funds that we have available to try to address that overrepresentation. And then we are sort of beyond that open to a whole range of strategies that you might come up with. And I think the way that we've articulated it in the RFPQ is, we're open to anything that improves the conditions for folks who right now have no choice but to sleep in unsanctioned encampments or in public spaces without the benefits of safety off the street services. And then beyond that, we really want to see how you are thinking about what the benefits are that this program offers relative to the cost and the resources that'll be required to create that program. And importantly, how you envision this program then integrating and providing support for people to transition out of that shelter environment into permanent housing, recognizing that we're not asking you to propose the funding for that, but the shelter, whatever form shelter takes in our community, it has to be a pathway to permanent housing for folks, understanding that may take a little bit of time, it may take a long time, but we don't want a shelter program, no matter what it looks like, to be anyone's final destination. That shelter needs to be a place for folks to create safety and stability for themselves and have the opportunity to access the resources that they need to move on to a permanent living situation once that living situation is available to them. And we recognize and we work hard, as all of you do, to ensure that we are expanding the long-term permanent housing options for folks. And that's a process, and it takes time. So the shelter is a critical component of that, but we do want to see how you're thinking about what this shelter program that you're proposing does in terms of meeting people's immediate basic needs for safety and support, and also how you envision it supporting people's transition from shelter back to housing. So that's a very high level overview. Again, emphasis here on your creativity, wanting to really see your vision and the community's vision for what shelter can look like. With being very clear that shelter is about the needs of the people who are being served there. So, we really want to see how you're thinking about what this community what kind of community is created for the folks who are staying in the shelter, how they're supported, how it fosters their success in transitioning out of homelessness. That will certainly be the sort of critical lens through which we're viewing this. So I think, Kathy, Anything additional that I should have covered that I didn't?
I need to unmute myself. I'm sorry. No, that sounds great. There is a question in the chat bar if you would like to address it.
Okay, so I've got two here from Matthew Lumbo. First is, hi, are you Matthew? Do you want to just unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Mark. It's great to see you. Thanks for being here. And thanks for putting this RFP out. So I'm on the board of the Sunnyside Neighborhood Association, and we've been working really hard to supplement city services. Oh, I'm sorry. That's probably a lot better, huh? We've been working pretty hard, I would say very hard, to supplement city services over the past few months for communities of people that are living in the parks and in the schools in our neighborhood. So we've got lots of volunteers and we've got lots of support for doing that, and it's been going great. And so I guess both my questions are really just one question. Can we use this RFPQ to supplement those kinds of programs in a more organized way and maybe put some real funding behind it? Essentially, augmenting sanitation, hygiene support, stuff like that. Central City Concern has been trying to do some trash pickup, but it's been spotty. Everything's overwhelmed, and we're ready to do it as the neighborhood, and we've been doing it. But we just don't have organizational support and structure and communication and those kinds of things. So I guess that's question A. And then question B, out of that, we've developed a group of people that has put a lot of thought and work into building a sanctioned camping site for 15 or 20 people. And we feel pretty confident that we can do it. We have a nonprofit here in the neighborhood that has been working with people for many years that would provide supportive services, but we just can't find a place to build it. So do you have any advice, I guess, for temporarily leasing private land so that we could build a low impact, low budget camping site like this in the short term, just so that people have a stable place to live? I understand your point very much about transitioning to permanent housing, but at this point, if people are just living, on the street, in the park, at the school, I mean, isn't any sort of support to keep them alive and stable and healthy in even the smallest way, doesn't it kind of fulfill that requirement? So that was a lot, and I'm gonna leave it there.
It was helpful. So I want to be really clear. We understand that this RFPQ is really focused on the part that you said, which is creating some immediate safety for folks who don't have that right now because they're living unsheltered. My point around the sort of how do you envision people using this shelter that you're proposing as a springboard to the next thing, right? And that there's just an element of that, and that is not your responsibility to solve for. I think what we want to see is your vision for that, because then the joint office, part of our goal is, as we go to expand shelter in our community, whatever it looks like, whether it's through this vehicle or others, we're always thinking about what resources then do we need to also bring to that shelter space that will allow people to make that successful transition. So I think we want to hear your vision for what this shelter space will do to stabilize folks and provide them that safety, and then how you think about it potentially supporting folks with a exit to permanent housing, recognizing that we're not asking you to design that part of the program. We're just kind of interested in knowing that you recognize that is the opportunity that shelter creates beyond just basic safety.
Can we think about it as like we would provide something and then you want to be able to see how to fill in the gaps?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I didn't mean to confuse things. So I appreciate you asking that. So the part about a space and leasing a space. So, of course, it's great if you're in a position to come forward and say, we have this piece of land that we are ready to lease for this amount of money. We have a willing partner, and we have an operator. But I think if you read through the RFPQ, we tried to be clear, we understand you may not have all of those pieces in place. And your proposal may say, we have an operator organization, we have the staffing, we need, but we'll need this amount of money to support the operations. And we don't have a site, we will need help identifying a site. or we think we do have a site, but we need to have the financial resources to secure it. Like wherever you are in that process, we're not asking you to come forward we're not asking you to only come forward if you have all of the pieces in place already. We want to know what pieces you have in place and what you would still need from us in terms of support. There is a criteria here around readiness. I mean, to the extent that you have all of the pieces, that's an advantage. And we recognize that in all likelihood, not everyone is going to have all the pieces in place. And that's partly what we want to see from you is, here are the resources that we have been able to assemble in our local community, right, in our neighborhood, to make this happen. And what we need from the city and the county or from the joint office is this. And if you were able to provide us this, we would have this new community of 20 people in this neighborhood that was in a alternative shelter environment. So that's you bring us what you have in essence, and acknowledge what you don't, and let us look at that and see if that's something that we can address. Does that give you enough of an answer? Okay. All right. Let me walk through here.
I believe someone had their hand up. Corey, I believe. Is she still asking? If you had your hand up, please feel free to unmute and ask your question. Oh, there she is. There's a, would JOHS possibly match a nonprofit with land and shelter partner?
Would we possibly, sorry, can you say that again?
Corey, would you like to come on and state your question?
So I guess the broad question of like, if you have just one component, like I'm actually a community organization interested in running shelter, but I don't have land, right? Should you submit the RFPQ? Yes, I think that is fine. We can out of this process try to do some matching. I don't want to disagree. Obviously, I think the more that there is a proposal that has the components in place, the stronger that will be in that moment. But that doesn't mean if somebody comes in with if someone came in and just said, we have a piece of land, or we have an organization that wants to do the work, that would be good to know. And we can do some kind of matching work. I mean, Kathy, I'm going to look to you around sort of procurement rules, but my understanding is that in principle, if someone submits something formal to this, that's responsive to this, that kind of gets them across that first threshold and allows us to review it, right? And so I think even if what you think you can offer right now is pretty limited in scope, there may be value in you going ahead and putting that forward.
That is correct. We're treating this as mainly as in the form of request for information. So you don't have to provide all of the details of how you would do that, as we will in further stages narrow it down. And while we may not be able to, it may change our scope in the future. So, but this is primarily an information gathering process that we do want to invite as many people as possible to submit their ideas, whether or not they are an agency that we can contract with or a private person. So we do want to collect those ideas as best we can and get those to the joint office so that they can determine the best proposals to move forward with. I think that's what you're trying to say.
So I'm seeing Mark Lakeman's sort of chat here saying, hey, I've got a long history in doing this work. I'm here to offer myself as a partner. Is there a way that we can invite folks who attended this meeting to get to know each other and what they want to, how they want to help each other potentially in putting something together. Can we facilitate that somehow? Can folks give us their contact information and what they want to do, and can we push that back out to them? I mean, I know this is I think this is coming. Portland Housing Bureau does these kind of pre-proposal conferences as partly to help people see each other and know who might be interested in putting together a proposal. I think that's what they're going for here.
It's certainly worth looking into. I can't say for sure that what kind of scope could be involved with that, but it's definitely something we can look at. Bring the purchasing manager in on, or higher ups in, and see what we can arrange for that.
And Mark, I'm happy to support that. And I would propose we could distribute a contact form to folks. And if you're interested in being part of the group that has this dialogue, you could submit your contact information, and then we could push that list back out to the group. So I think there's a mechanism where we could find a way to connect folks.
All right, can we just make sure we capture everybody's contact information who wants to be included on something like that during this call? I don't know how to do that, but if someone can figure out how to make sure everyone here who wants to potentially be connected to other interested parties shares their contact information, so we are able to broker that.
I would highly recommend doing that through the Q&A tool. That is on the MMP website, to go ahead and do that. But also feel free to put it here. I will try to capture it as best as possible. This isn't the easiest way to collect hard copy questions, but I'll certainly do my best to try and capture everybody who is in here. But the most safest way is to use the Q&A tool, which I'll be going over at the end of the meeting.
Okay, perfect. So real quickly, there's a question about someone who has a business that's an LLC. At the RFPQ, I think it's pretty clear. It needs to be a nonprofit organization that is your operator, so that you know that. There's a question here about, does the county have land available for camps? So we are looking in partnership with the city of Portland at what kind of land resources we may have. That is something we're always exploring. So again, if you have all the other components but you don't have a site, that is something that you can share with us, and as we understand what we have available to potentially add into this, we'll be able to match that to projects that get proposed. Question about where I live. I live in Portland in Rose City Park. My contact information is mark.jolin@multco.us. Feel free to reach out to me, although the questions related to this RFPQ need to run through that Q&A portal that Kathy is talking about. We can't answer questions outside of that. And let's see. Okay, linking them up, we've got that. Nonprofit, we talked about that. All right, there's a lot in the chat here. Okay, we got a lot of names. All right, there's good conversation going on amongst you. I actually have to jump off of this call. Adam is here and can continue to answer some of the programmatic questions, unless there's something. I see, Carol, you've got a hand up, but I also first saw Gavin. Gavin, do you want to go? Gavin Briss.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hi there. Hi, I just typed in the question. I'm wondering, I'm with Agile Modularity. Mark, we did speak briefly. We're kind of, we build the, we have a different shelter model that's being used, or than that is being used now. And my question is are the spacings that I'm seeing in the villages around town, I was trying to find out if this was for COVID safety or fire code. I wasn't sure it could sort of be explained in each. What is this? What is the answer to that? Is that a
So the C3PO villages were built as a COVID response. So the spacing there is a COVID safety spacing. There are fire code requirements in general terms around the villages in terms of spacing, but they're different. So it's both of those things. But those are details that we can address as the project comes forward.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Carol, and then I'm going to jump off and turn it over to Adam. You're muted, Carol. Okay. All right, Adam, I'm going to turn it over to you. Again, thank you all very, very much for your interest in this. I'm excited for the prospects of the partnerships that are going to come of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Adam Brown. I'm the business manager for the Joint Office, and I'll be supporting the questions here for the duration. Carol, I'm sorry that you're not able to unmute yourself. If you go ahead and put your question in the chat box, we'll try to address it. Any other questions here at the moment? I see a lot of folks are putting their contact information and the reason that they're providing that contact information in terms of what you do. So we'll definitely capture that and make sure we connect folks. Lorena, would you like to go ahead and pose your question?
Yeah, so if we're not part of a nonprofit organization, for just an individual with an idea, do we still submit the RFPQ?
So we've outlined in the RFPQ itself what we're looking for in terms of pretty well fleshed out ideas around programming, right? If you're an individual with an idea, I think the best venue is to send Kathy your email. Kathy has gotten a number of contacts from members of the community just interested in providing ideas, and she's capturing those sort of outside of the RFPQ process. So if you have an idea, by all means, we want to hear your idea, and so I would encourage you to send them to Kathy. She's been passing that stuff on to our leadership team in the Joint Office so that we have access to that.
Okay.
Okay.
Marcus raised his hand.
Hi. Yeah, I've been kind of adding some thoughts in the sidebar. I'm very excited about this approach. As you know well, most of the villages in Portland and in other cities around us have emerged in quite a different way, and it's very exciting that the county is inviting teams. My sense is that other than teams that have kind of formed in response to DIY initiatives, there aren't a lot of community level kind of combinations of organizations and people with special skills to respond to this RFPQ yet. And so, I'm responding with excitement. We've helped to produce and permit most lately Veterans Village, but and we've partnered with people like Catholic Charities in order to make that happen. But we haven't really had this approach before. So I'm just thinking it may take some work to have people, as we're kind of doing here in this sort of sidebar discussion, it may take a while for people to find each other in order to build teams and respond. I think that the challenge of identifying the land piece will be daunting for some teams who don't really know how to begin to approach that in particular. But it is very exciting, and I'm sure it's going to be successful. And I very much hope that then we scale this up, because I don't think that we are anywhere near keeping pace with just the daily increase in the demand for help. Thank you.
Thank you for your interest, Mark, and your thoughts and your encouragement. I appreciate your commitment to this stuff. Carol Turner, it looks like you were able to put your question in the box. You're asking if a nonprofit submits a general proposal that could include several projects that are not nonprofits. Do all of these projects have to be identified and named in stage 1? No. So what we're doing here is we're were qualifying entities that we could contract with in the future. And so as long as the entity that we would enter into a contract with in the future has submitted a proposal here, and that proposal fits within the scope of the services that we've outlined, the range of programmatic, the programmatic elements. As long as those things fit, then we have some flexibility in terms of what this may look like going forward. Does that answer your question? And Kathy, do you have anything to add on the technical procurement side related to that?
Sorry, it's always a struggle to find the unmute button. No, that's fine. And again, if you even have not an entirely fleshed out proposal, that's fine. We want to hear about your very newborn ideas and realizing that you may not have all the details at this point. So we do want to hear from you, especially if you're someone who could ultimately be contracting with the county. So it does not have to be a complete proposal, but it does need to outline a broad concept of what you're proposing for the county to do.
Kathy, we have a question here from Matt saying, will you consider a neighborhood association as such an entity? We are a 501c3.
We would probably be able to accept your proposal, but we may not be able to contract with you. So that's something we can look at in further stages, but it will not prevent you from submitting at least an idea in this first stage.
And Matt, I'll add to that there's some learning here as we go. So we've intended to make this initial round as low barrier as possible because we want to capture the universe of ideas and entities that could provide us with potential solutions down the road. So you have our commitment to doing whatever we can to learn from the fruits of this first round, to work within the system constraints, to accommodate as much as we can at the subsequent stage of the process, to, as Mark said, really accomplish our goal here, which is expanding this range of alternative options.
How can we find out if we'll be considered or not for being contracted with? I understand that completely, Adam, and thank you. We really have to decide how we're going to focus our energies, and we're not equipped for this type of response typically, and we've got a team that's starting to work on it, but it is a lot. It's a lot of work for us to respond. Even the few sort of questions that are in there, a lot of them are pretty deep, and we're doing that stuff, but it would be, maybe we should aim it somewhere else if there isn't any chance of us being funded. And I understand why. It's a pretty weird arrangement.
Yeah. So I understand the process is somewhat burdensome, and we've really tried hard to make this as low barrier as we can within the sort of their procurement laws, right, that local governments have to follow, and that's influenced some of this. But I would say, so after the first round, based on the universe of what we get, that's going to determine what the second stage looks like. And so then we'll circle back with groups and let you know if we think you can proceed to that second stage, and what the evaluation criteria are going to be for that second stage. But we felt like that we didn't want to bake that into the initial round, because that would add layers that would actually make it more high barrier, right? We're trying to capture the universe of ideas here in the first round, and then build the second round to accommodate folks as much as we can.
Lorena, did you have another question?
No, is it still showing my hand is up? Sorry. Oh, there we go. Actually, I kind of did. So if we're an individual with an idea and we submit it and it gets approved, are we going to be contacted? Because I'd really like to be involved with this. Yeah, I've actually been designing this shelter for about a year, and so I'd love to be involved with it, but I personally do not have the capabilities to build this many units. So how would that work?
So I think we'd have to know what it is that you're interested, more about what you're interested in doing before we can offer guidance on that. So I would say, reach out to Kathy, tell us a little bit about what you've been working on, and then we'll follow up with you. Okay.
Okay.
I see a good question here in the chat. Should outcomes reflect pre-pandemic spacing or current pandemic spacing, or both? All sheltering environments are currently operating at a reduced capacity, and hopefully in the future we can go back to pre-pandemic. So this is such a relevant question, and something we're dealing with every day in the Joint Office and in our shelter system. So folks know we've had to decompress our existing shelter system to accommodate physical distancing requirements. And so I would say the core should be pre-pandemic levels, but you might put a caveat in there saying, depending on when the project is up and running, the capacity still may be influenced by the need for certain spacing. And so capacity may be reduced until we can sort of return to normal physical distancing and spacing requirements. There's a lot of folks on the call, and there's a lot of stuff being put in the chat. I want to make sure I'm capturing questions, but I would also encourage you to raise your hand and or just sort of unmute yourself and feel free to pose your question if you've asked something and I haven't gotten to it in the chat box, because it's hard to capture everything with the flow of chats coming in.
Mark, you have your hand up still? Did you still have a question? Mark Wake?
Gosh, sorry, I didn't realize I'll lower my hand, sorry. Oh, well, actually, I was wondering if Lakita is submitting for this, and as I know that Lakita, you have been working on a really exciting idea for a village for quite some time, and I was wondering if this RFPQ might have been inspired actually by your initiative. Okay, hand down. Sorry.
Thanks for asking that, Mark. Yeah, we're here. A few of us are here to definitely hear about this proposal from this, from the joint offices. And yes, we appreciate the thank you. You called me off guard.
Sorry.
So I'm just listening and yes, there's some ideas and conversations populating, and I've been doing this work for many moons, and City Repair has been a very they're my allies in this work as well. So we are considering if they will have us on this proposal for our idea and concept around the Afro Village, and we're just looking at a few different models to looking at the model to fit this need. So I guess these questions we're just here to get the questions right. And also I would just, a recommendation is what folks are feeling is the time frame, right? Like to gather this information, your team and everything, and next week or the week after is where the proposal is to be submitted. So the time is very constrenuous if we're having this call today, and that's just to my joint office folks, and I didn't get a chance to say that to Mark. But thank you Adam, and thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much for being here. And I know the time is short, and so I appreciate the effort and energy it's taking everyone to work on this. I know it's a tight turnaround. We're trying to strike a balance between gathering all this information, but also trying to be as responsive as we can to the community, right? These processes take time, and there's a number of stages. So hopefully folks can do their best to get submissions in and work with us on that timeline. Kathy, we have a question here. What are the requirements to contract with the county to help? What are the requirements to contract with the county in helping organizations understand if they should invest time into this opportunity? Is that something folks can reach out to you with questions about? So if you have specific questions about your entity and whether or not the county could contract with you, I would suggest reaching out to Kathy. Is that all right, Kathy?
Yes, that would be fine. There are some requirements if you are awarded a contract, but there are also opportunities for memorandums of understanding that allow different agencies to work together, and one agency acts as the lead agency for someone else who may not be able to contract. So those arrangements might be possible. So even though you're not currently able to contract with the county, there might be other opportunities to build you into a group of, as Adam and Mark were saying, a group of vendors that might be providing the final solutions as part of a package group. I believe so, but if the requirements are available on the website, they are. I'm not sure off the top of my head where they're at, but I can post in the Q&A tool of the RFP where they could be located after we're done. I'll have to do some checking into that.
So we've got about 10 minutes left. I know, Kathy, I think you had some technical aspects, some housekeeping items that you wanted to go over. How much time do you need for that? Oh, you're muted.
I'm muted again. I will go over the most important dates as to when, and then if you have questions about how to submit, I'll be glad to stay after this online if people want to go through the actual steps and how to submit a proposal through the tool. So if it's okay with you, Adam, is it right to start off with that? Okay. Most important dates are, let's see, just a second. I need to capture this question. So the most important dates are, the last date for questions is March 1st. That is this weekend. So please make sure you submit any questions that you have after today through the Q&A tool, and we'll try to respond as soon as possible before it closes on the 9th. The 9th is the last day that you can submit a proposal. They are due by 4 p.m. So please make sure that when you're submitting the proposal that it's completely received by the county in order for us to accept it before 4 p.m. on the 9th of March. Let's see, the next, we will be issuing an addenda probably later today. And if you have submitted your proposal before that time, the system will automatically return your proposal to you to make any changes that you feel you might need to make. And then you have to resubmit it again. I know that's kind of clunky, but anytime we make a change, we do want to make sure that you as proposers get an opportunity to change anything in your submission before you before it closes. So if it's returned to you, make sure that you review it and send it back in before the closing date to make sure that we can receive it properly. Again, if you are not sure about if we can contract with you, go ahead and still submit your proposal through MMP. If something in the incorporated status doesn't apply to you, you can always say NA in the state that you were incorporated in or your date of incorporation. Feel free to put NA. It's not as critical in this stage, though later on it will be critical that we'll need to know that information from you if you are an agency that we'll be contracting with. But at this stage, it is not as critical, so don't be concerned if it asks you for your date of incorporation or which state that you're incorporated in. But do answer as many questions as you can in the group 1 question, which are the company's information and certs. Let's see. If you do have a question, again, please use the Q&A tool. That's the best way to get an answer in writing from the county. Anything in writing, the county is bound by. If it's something verbal or an unofficial email, we cannot be bound by any of the instructions in that. So please, if you want a definitive answer on something, submit it through the Q&A tool, and we'll be glad to respond as soon as possible. Any questions about that? Do the organizations need to have nonprofit status and Q&A GL insurance when they submit? No, not at this time. You do not need to have your insurance or your nonprofit status at the end of stage 1. You may have to for future stages, and that will be announced if any of those requirements will be met at that time. But at this present stage, no, you do not. But for future, that will be something that we'll need to look at, especially if you need to get the ability to contract with the county. Caitlin has a question. Caitlin, you raised your hand?
I did not raise my hand. Oh. Different Caitlin. Sorry, there's two Caitlins here. So I'm currently in the process of developing a website for the organization that I'm co-founding. And I guess my question is, do you prefer to see a website upon the proposal being submitted? Is that something that I should work on finishing? Or would that be something that would be needed in a later stage as well?
So, Caitlin, I would say the most important part right now is your ideas. And so I don't think you should feel compelled to finish that up. And that we're at the idea gathering stage, right? In terms of assessing the organizational capacity or things like that, that'll happen down the road, which could be informed by, things like your website or other elements of your business. So I wouldn't focus on that right now. I would focus on just the ideas.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Thank you, Adam. Yes. Are there any other questions? Oh, okay. What I'll do is I'll share my screen that shows the website.
So, Kathy, if you wouldn't mind, so folks, I've got a hard stop at 11 o'clock, and Kathy's going to walk everybody through the MMP process here. So in case you have any trouble navigating the website, she'll offer a little bit of guidance about that. But before I leave, I just want to take the opportunity to thank you all for being here. I want to thank you for your interest in providing solutions to our community to deal with the homelessness crisis that we're facing, that I think we all recognize has been exacerbated by COVID-19. And I want to thank you for being here on behalf of the Joint Office and supporting our community in this effort. Without your ideas, this process wouldn't be as fruitful. So thank you so much for that. And we look forward to seeing your ideas as part of the RFPQ. And thank you, Kathy, for all of your support with this.
Thank you, Adam. Really appreciate it. Oh, okay. So how many have gone into the MMP portal to get information, submit, etc.? Okay, so I'll walk through. The easiest way to get onto MMP is to go to the Multnomah County website, which is multco, MULTCO/purchasing, and it'll take you to the purchasing website, and I'll start sharing now. Oh, okay, can everybody see that? And then what you want to do is, oh, did Caitlin M. or Lakita have a question? No? Okay. Select the bid proposals and opportunities. So this is what we call MMP. It's the Multco Marketplace Supplier Network. And once you're on this page, a little bit, it'll list all of the available RFP and RFPQs that we have outside, ready for agencies and people to submit to. And this particular RFPQ is the alternative shelter reissue. So if you click on that, it'll take you to a login site. And if you've never signed up with the county before, this is where you can sign up. And if you do sign up, it will give you, and you put a profile in the system, it'll match any keywords that you put into your profile with any keywords that we use for our solicitations. So if you have mental health services or housing services, organizational skills, you would put those keywords and commodity codes into your profile, and you will automatically receive notices of any future solicitations that we have for those types of services. So I am going to log in as if I'm a supplier. This worked earlier today. So you want to go to public opportunities. And again, bring up the. So this is where you can find out everything about the sourcing event, the RFPQ. It tells you the date that it's due, the event schedule, if you click on it, the date that will accept any questions through the portal. And then it gives you all the background information. And if you hit next, it'll go through all the questions that you need to answer. Gives you some instructions about how to complete and submit a response, which is your proposal. And then whether or not you intend to bid or submit a proposal. So once you hit yes, then it'll take you on to some other questions. The thing that we're most looking for is that we want to keep the proposal short. So the page limit is 6 pages. The only 2 things you need to submit is your proposal, which is the 6 pages in answer to the questions, which is your idea or concept. And then if you have any additional information such as partnerships, MOUs, et cetera, that is allowed in a separate attachment. So those are the only 2 things you should be submitting is your idea or concept at 6 pages, and then a list of any memorandums of understanding or partnership agreements that you might have that help in developing your idea. So those are the 2 things. So you would upload those and then submit, and as long as you do that by 4 p.m. on the 9th of September, you are good to go for this first stage. What we'll do then is we'll evaluate all of the proposals. We'll identify some of the ones that we can work with and put those together into the stage 2 and stages after that to further clarify and identify the particular scope of work that we're going to be developing based on the ideas that you all have turned in. Any questions about that? I know this is kind of vague. It's new for us too, so that's why we're struggling a little bit, because we do want to get a wide range of ideas and concepts from people. And then after this stage, identify those people we can contract with for those ideas. And then if you do need help in being and getting the ability to contract with us, we'll be glad to help with that also. Someone was asking, where did we find out about how to do business with the county? That is at the Multnomah County purchasing website. So that again is multco, multco.us/purchasing. And our website, we identify how you log on to where to submit your proposal, how to do business with the county, which outlines the different rule sets we go by. There's also links to how to become a COVID certified business, which if you are a small business, you can get certified as an MWESB disabilities veteran organization, and that's through the state of Oregon. It's not required for you to do business with the county, but it does help you get identified as a small business and allows networking for future opportunities. Let's see, and different information about how to submit is here. How to log into your account, how to look at commodity codes if you want to set up a complete profile that will help you get automatic notifications on future business. Any questions about that? Anything in particular that you wanted to see, or things that I can show you all while you're still here? If you have your hand up, I can't see you, unfortunately. My screen is cutting some off, but feel free to put it into the chat bar. Okay, so again, the most important things are, don't worry about if you don't feel you can contract with the county on stage 1, that's fine. We're more looking for your ideas and concepts at this stage. So feel free to submit a proposal either through me, if you are a private party and don't feel you could be contracting with the county. But if you are someone who does want a contract from the county, submit through MMP, submit through your proposal and have it submitted by the 9th of March. If you have any questions about the difference in that, feel free to email me or get in contact with me. I'll be glad to help. Matthew, I'll have to look into that. I believe there might be a way to do that, but we'll have to check into that. Can you email that to me and I'll be glad to check.
Excuse me, I'm going to rudely interrupt because I'm on a telephone. Kathy, can you give us your email?
Yes, my email is Kathy, Kathi, .Bramey-Burr, B as in boy, R-A-E, M as in Mary, E, hyphen, B-U-R-R. So it's Kathy.Bramey-Burr at Multco, MULTCO.US.
B-R-A-E-M-E-Burr, B-U-R-R.
B as in boy, R as in Robert, A as in Apple, E as in Edward, M as in Mary, E as in Edward, hyphen B as in boy, U as in United, R, Robert, R. Correct. Marta
Thank
just
you.
to the chat bar. Thank you, Marta. I am also available to help walk you through logging in if you would like to log in and register as a vendor if your firm hasn't already done that. So feel free to reach out to me. I'll be glad to help you with that. Any other questions that I can answer at this time? Okay. Well, if you do have follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be glad to help in any way I can. I am available most weekdays. I will be out of the office next Friday, which is 5th. So if you have any questions that you need me to get back to you right away, please let me know before Thursday, and I'll try to help you as best I can and make sure that you're able to submit your ideas and concepts. Again, thank you all for your attention today and attendance. So I really appreciate it. You've been very informative to me and a lot of good questions. So I do thank you for your time. And again, reach out to me if any questions. We'll be glad to help in any way we can. Thank you very much. And I'll be ending the meeting at this point if there's no further questions. You all take care.